So today, our mission is to really unpack a concept that just pushes the absolute boundaries of, well, everything we think we know about civilization, even reality itself. We're talking about the Type 5 civilization.
Right. The far, far end of the scale.
Exactly. And we're drawing from a stack of sources, some really fascinating articles and research you shared that explore this theoretical peak of cosmic power.
Yeah, theoretical is the key word there.
Definitely. Okay, so let's try and get our heads around this. Imagine entities, right? So their domain isn't just, say, a planet or a galaxy, but the entire multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
This is where science really starts to blur with what honestly sounds like magic. We're talking about controlling fundamental reality.
And what's fascinating looking through these sources is just how massive that leap is. You go from, mastering your galaxy's energy, that's Type 3, or maybe even a supercluster for Type 4.
Which is already mind-boggling.
Totally mind-boggling. And then suddenly, you jump to operating across all possible realities. It's not just about using, infinite energy. The sources suggest it's about command over the very fabric of existence, everywhere, across this whole multiversal landscape they describe.
Right. So they're not just living in a universe. They are, in a sense, of the multiverse. But, okay, for this to even be remotely possible, you need a stage, right? A theoretical playground for them. Your sources get into a couple of key ideas about that, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah, the groundwork needs to be there, theoretically. One big idea that comes up a lot in the material is the simulation hypothesis.
Ah, okay. The idea that our reality is coded.
Right. If our reality, and maybe countless others, are basically sophisticated simulations, then a Type 5 civilization, according to these papers, would just be like a player in the game. They'd be the ultimate programmer. Their power isn't about building giant structures anymore. It's direct manipulation of the underlying code, the computational laws themselves. They could literally spin up new universes or just tweak the parameters of ours.
So it's less like building a Dyson sphere around a star, and more like, I don't know, editing the universe's config file.
Precisely. That's a good analogy. And then another concept that's really emphasized in your sources comes from string theory, this idea of brain cosmology.
Brains, like membrane.
Yeah, exactly. It pictures our universe as just one brain, a kind of membrane, floating in a higher dimensional space, the bulk. And there could be other universe brains floating nearby or far away.
Okay.
So the deep dive here, based on the sources, is that a Type 5 wouldn't be confined to just one brain. They could potentially exist in or even manipulate that higher dimensional space between the brain.
Which would allow them to, hop between universes?
Well, yeah, that's one implication. Seamless transit or interaction between different universes.
Yeah.
That's where that idea of interuniversal transit you mentioned seeing in the sources comes from.
Right, crossing between universes, maybe even jumping across timelines. Is that feasible under these models?
It's certainly what the theories discussed suggest. Brain cosmology, or even some takes on the many worlds interpretation that pop up in another article, could potentially allow for that. But it goes beyond just travel. The sources talk about capabilities that, from our viewpoint, seem truly godlike. Think about universal genesis and annihilation.
Creating or destroying entire universes. Okay, how? How do the sources even begin to conceptualize that?
Well, if you take the simulation idea, it's like booting up a new program or deleting an old one. If you think about brains, maybe it's like sculpting a new universe brain out of the raw potential of that higher dimensional bulk. One source even speculated about tapping into zero-point energy, that sort of background quantum fuzz energy, but doing it across all possible universes simultaneously. That gives you a practically infinite power source for these kinds of cosmic scale actions.
Wow. Tapping the energy of basically everything, everywhere, all at once.
Okay. What about reality weaving? That term also stood out. It sounds a bit different from just making or unmaking universes.
Yeah, that's a subtle but fascinating distinction made in the material. Reality weaving, as it's described, isn't necessarily creating a brand new universe from scratch. It's more about manipulating parallel or alternate realities that already exist.
Altering them.
Potentially. The sources suggest this could involve things like tweaking timelines, maybe changing fundamental physical laws within a specific reality to suit some purpose, or even merging or splitting different realities. It's almost like having version control over existence itself.
Version control for reality. And the entity, the civilization doing this, the sources seem to imply it might not even be life as we typically understand it, right? That's right. Yeah, the material definitely speculates that reaching this level might require or lead to a form of existence totally beyond biology. Perhaps, a consciousness that's distributed across many realities at once.
Like a network.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe an emergent property of the multiverse itself. Or perhaps incredibly advanced AI that's become integrated with the fundamental forces, or the computational substrate if it's a simulation. Their mind could literally be part of the cosmic fabric.
So, okay, stepping back. What does this all mean for us looking at these sources? We've journeyed through these pretty wild theoretical realms of Type 5 civilizations.
Definitely theoretical.
We've seen how ideas like the simulation hypothesis or brain cosmology might, provide the theoretical stage. And we've explored these almost unbelievable capabilities like reality weaving and universal genesis as described in the material.
And it's really crucial to remember, as the sources themselves make very clear, this is highly speculative stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
It's firmly in the realm of, well, theoretical physics meets science fiction for now. It hinges on concepts like the multiverse actually being real, which is still very much debated, and humanity. We're what, maybe type 0.7 on a good day. We are a very, very long way from anything like this.
A very long way. But the value here, and I think what these sources really offer, is acting as this incredibly powerful thought experiment, isn't it? It challenges our imagination, really pushes the limits of what we think might be possible, and kind of forces us to reevaluate our own tiny place by showing this theoretical ultimate peak of cosmic power and control. It's like a conceptual North Star, in a way.
And the speculation within the sources about what a Type 5 entity is, well, that alone raises some profound questions about existence itself.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider, drawing from mulling over these theoretical architects of reality. If it were actually possible for some kind of civilization or entity to manipulate physical constants across different realities, to navigate timelines freely, and to exist as this kind of distributed being across the entire multiverse, how would that fundamentally change the very definition of self or consciousness? What would reality even mean from their perspective? How would they perceive being?